What's up, folks? Moon here. Today we're going to be talking about guilds in MMOs and RPGs, World of Warcraft specifically, because that's the game I play. But guilds are the life essence, they're the soul of MMOs. And I know it's a little bit out there as a claim, but think about it. In a MMORPG, specifically the MMO part of it, who you surround yourself with largely determines how you're going to experience the game. Whether you're learning it for the first time and this is your batch of mentors who are helping you learn things, or let's say, for instance, you want to get better at the game, and so you're improving the game alongside another group of individuals who are working together as a team to overcome a goal, whatever that is, if it's raiding, if it's PvP, that sort of stuff. And I think guilds, if they're done right, can set a community that can last for a really long time. For instance, when I went to BlizzCon last year, there were some guilds that were meeting at these regional restaurants. Or there's this one place called the Packing House, which is like a 2-story mall where it's only restaurants. And there was a guild there that was raiding that they had been raiding together since 2006. And it's largely composed of these people who are in their 30s and 40s, but these people have had such influence over each other's lives in these really deep and rich bonds because they were able to make memories with each other over the medium of a video game. And it was something that was really special. I kind of wish I had that, but I guess rather than, relishing in envy, I am very happy that this game is allowing things like that to exist. And then when guilds aren't run as great, when they're run rather poorly, you can see them get very volatile, you can see drama, you can see the sparks flying, guilds disbanding and exploding all the time, and it can leave a really bad taste in the mouths of a lot of players who are burned by experiences with bad guilds. There are the solo players who play this game solo because they just enjoy the game solo, and then there are solo players who are a little bit hesitant to join a guild again because a poorly run guild can make the game worse for the people who play it. And I've seen both sides to it. I've seen the positives of the guild, but largely my experiences with guilds have been negative. I wish to be in a positive one, but unfortunately that's how the dice rolls whenever you play the game. My first experience with a guild, I was still a child at the time when I started the game in 2008. My grandfather was the one who got me into the game, but we were able to make a guild based off of the people in our family because my aunt, my uncle, several of my cousins, my father played, my brother played, everybody I knew in my family played. Now, did we do anything together as a family? Unfortunately, no. But it was more of a social thing, and it was really cool getting to log on and see my family in guild chat and kind of ask about what they're up to, what they're doing in game, and that was a cool time. But I didn't really touch guilds because I was playing the game on and off until I was in Battle for Azeroth, where I'd recently turned 18, and I had recently seen this series. I don't know if it was on Netflix or if I just saw it on YouTube at the time, but it was called The Guild, and it's this sort of sitcom series in a way. I don't even know how I would categorize it, but it was about the players in this guild of this online game, and they ended up meeting up and all the antics that they got up to. I don't think I ever finished it, but I'm sure if you look it up on YouTube, you can find it somewhere. And so that had inspired me to join a regionally based guild. Because I live in Florida, I actually was able to find one with relative ease via a Facebook page. And I joined it, and I found that a lot of us were able to connect very easily because Florida has very regional things. We were able to talk about the climate or the humidity or the mosquitoes. And we're all familiar with the area as a whole, which made it a little bit easier to connect. And I'm not saying that it's that you need something like that to be able to connect with other people. In fact, I think the game does a fantastic job of that already, because there's so much to do in the game and there's so much to learn and experience from other players. But the thing that largely got me hooked was getting to spend a lot of time in the Discord voice chat, just sitting with other guild members and talking with them while we're doing menial tasks in the background, like farming herbs for potions or getting materials for cooking. And I think that was the coolest part, was I was able to just ask questions about these people and get to learn about what jobs they worked in the real world. And I got to learn more about the medical field. Some of them were pharmacy techs, some people were chefs, some people were firefighters, and these people all had diverse backgrounds that I was able to pull from and learn from. But the key difference is that unlike the modern day where people are so hyper fixated on their diversity, the guild itself was just naturally diverse. There wasn't this big plaster this big glowing sign because I feel like we've reached a point where people so hyperfixate on diversity that they completely forget that the point of the game was coming together despite your differences to overcome a goal, which is like raiding, which in this case was Ny'alotha at the end of Battle for Azeroth. And we could get into a little bit more of that later, but I feel like hyperpolitization has also just absolutely poisoned the state of guilds. But continuing on, things with that guild went mostly well, but our raid nights were leaving much to be desired. At the time, I was playing my restoration druid a ton, and I was top parsing on healing. Now, if anybody here were to go through my raid logs in general, you would know that my logs would leave a lot to be desired. I am not the raider type, so the fact that I was top healing was very concerning. And when you really took a step back and looked at the bigger picture of what was going on in our raid groups, you would see that a lot of these people just sucked at the game. They were probably not going to get any better either because they treated the game more like a social atmosphere and a hangout environment. And honestly, I was totally okay with that because these were people that I enjoyed spending my time playing with. And I know that, some people may view that unacceptable and they will leave the guild to go play with people who are more progression oriented. But at least at that point, I was able to tolerate it. Now, this is the part where it gets interesting because the guild met a demise rather shortly. You see, because it was formulated through Facebook where everybody has their real names shown to the public, there's an incident that occurred of which one of the men, who happened to be married in the guild, by the way, and I should also mention that his wife's in the guild too, decided to go and find the personal information of another one of the women in the guild and send her a picture of her own house. That was really creepy, really like just over the line type of shit that you just don't do. And this dude had a complete mental meltdown. He ended up getting removed from the guild, but the officers tried to sweep it underneath the rug. And I feel like I should have noticed the warning signs sooner, because whenever I was talking in voice chat about the history of the guild or with the officers, they had mentioned about how there was so much drama in the past, how there always seemed to be some sort of incident going on, but these officers were trying to conceal what was going on as opposed to just being transparent with the guild, made it very suspicious. And shortly following that, there were more incidents of like people's personal information getting leaked, and it very quickly collapsed. I was able to find solace in another guild at the time that lasted for a couple years, and I transferred over to Moonguard, which, the situation's got to be bad if you're going to Moonguard out of all the possible realms you could, and wow, a lot of players could attest to it. But even though the guild met in untimely end, I still felt like something about it had that authenticity that resonated with me that was really cool. And I feel like you can overlook some bad moments, and granted, you're not saying that everything's good. I know that nostalgia can make things seem better than it actually was, but I really did enjoy the authenticity because you could tell there wasn't any agenda. Things didn't feel overproduced to where it seemed like insincere. There is that level of just authenticity and sincerity that I greatly valued, and the players were just playing the game to have fun. I think some other highlights of guilds that I've had is that you can get introduced to content that you really haven't seen before. Like, for instance, I was never really much of a Mythic Plus player until I started just running some Mythic Plus content with some guild members, and now I do it more casually. You'll probably never see me in the MDI, but it's cool that I was able to get into that. Or if you split up the professions amongst guildies, it feels really good being able to make a crafted item for a guild member, or get them a potion where they don't have to go and buy it off the auction house. Just being able to have that in-game community that is separated from the bullshit of the real world, it truly is something special. So I know a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, Moon, if these guilds were giving you such a good time, why don't you go out there and one run yourself? And any guild master that's ever run a successful guild will laugh at you, because for as good as these communities and these guilds can be, running a guild is really hard, especially if you're going to do it well, because unfortunately you do have to subject yourself to a lot of bullshit. You have to subject yourself to a lot of upfront work, recruiting for people who are going to abandon you at any moment without notice, people who will drop you, you'll never hear from again. You invest a lot of time into these people, and there's drama, there's fights, there's disputes on how like loot is distributed. Or let's say that you try to select your good friend who you believe would be a great guild officer and representative of what your guild and your community stands for, but then that officer goes off and does something stupid that makes the guild look really bad, and now you have to play damage control for it. And I think for the players who've never actually run a guild or a community before, they would be completely blind to it. They'd be completely blind to the upfront work. So, I mean, I guess in a way I'm hoping to sort of do this through this channel, but we'll see if I'm able to convert this into an in-game audience. The big thing that actually really does suck about this game right now is that a lot of my EU friends are over on the EU realms and I can't play with them because I'm on North America. But I do want to give my sincerest admiration to those of you who, despite all odds, still do want to run a community, because even though there's a lot of work, even though there's a lot of downsides, even though there's a lot of, I'm not going to say sleepless nights because it's, it's a game, you should prioritize your real health, but even though there's a lot of barriers that you will encounter in trying to formulate a community, you do it anyways because you know that the payoff is going to be worth it. You will meet some of the most genuine and sincere connections if you sift through enough people and work at it long enough. You will be able to create that community that allows you to overcome the most difficult obstacles in the game. You want to raid, I know a lot of heroic raiding is a lot for some people. Mythic raiders, they look down on heroic raiders, but they don't realize that, for somebody who's not used to an MMO or a game, it can be a challenge. And so getting able to find a group that allows you to do that challenge of a heroic raid, or compete against other 10v10 teams in PvP, or push your skill to the absolute limit alongside people you can crack a few edgy jokes with. It really can be magical if you put in the work. The more of these types of videos that I make, these sort of like fireside chats where I just ramble for a little bit and put some B-roll footage in, it feels comfortable. And I surprisingly really enjoy doing this type of content. So if you'd like me to do more of these types of videos, it would mean a lot if you could help me out by leaving a like or subscribing or commenting. Actually, if you've listened to this long in the video, can you do me a solid? Just comment your experience with guilds in the game. Was there any particular moment, good or bad, that stood out to you? Do you have any stories to share? Because I really do read these comments. They do make my day. And who knows? I might even be able to convert this to some sort of in-game guild someday as we go to the war within. But that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, this is Moon, signing out.